Linda counted the coins in her palm one more time, pressing each one between her fingers as if the pressure alone might change the total. A quarter, 3 dimes, 8 nickels, 7 pennies, $1.47. She had already counted twice in the car, once in the parking lot, and now again at the corner booth of Marcy's Diner, where the heat worked and nobody rushed you out. It was the heat that brought her here, not the food, though the smell of butter and warm syrup was doing something cruel to her stomach. It was the simple fact that their apartment radiator had gone cold 2 days ago, and the landlord wasn't answering, and Mia had woken up that morning with her small hands tucked under her chin like a little animal trying to keep itself warm. Linda had watched her sleep for a long moment, then quietly gathered their coats and said, "Let's go get breakfast, baby." She hadn't told Mia they couldn't afford breakfast. You protect them from that for as long as you possibly can. Marcy's Diner sat on the corner of 5th and Elm in a town that had seen better decades but still kept its charm in small ways. Hand-painted window signs, a bell above the door that rang like it meant it, booths with cracked red vinyl that had held 1,000 conversations. Linda had been here once before, years ago, with her mother. She remembered the hot chocolate. She remembered feeling safe. She chose the corner booth deliberately, back wall, clear view of the door, out of the main sight line of the other diners. A habit she had developed over the past 8 months. You learn quickly, when money runs thin, how to take up less space, how to sit smaller, how to eat without looking like you're eating slowly because you're making it last. Mia climbed into the booth across from her, still wearing her purple knit hat with the pom-pom on top. She looked around the diner with those wide, curious brown eyes that saw everything and judged nothing. That was the thing about 4-year-olds. The world was still entirely wonderful to them. Even a cracked vinyl booth in a corner diner on a Tuesday morning was an adventure. "Are we having pancakes?" Mia asked. "We'll see what looks good," Linda said, opening the laminated menu even though she had already made her decision in the parking lot. 1 grilled cheese. $3.99, but she had a crumpled coupon at the bottom of her bag. Buy 1 kid's item, get 50% off. She had found it tucked inside a community flyer 2 weeks ago and folded it carefully, saving it the way you save things when you're not sure when the next good thing is coming. With the coupon, the grilled cheese came to $2.75 after tax. She had $1.47. She would ask them to split it. Order 1, ask for an extra plate, cut it down the middle, give Mia the bigger half. She had done this before. Most places didn't say anything. And if they did, she would handle it then. The waitress, a woman in her 50s with silver hair pinned up and reading glasses on a beaded chain, came over with a warm smile and a coffee pot. "Coffee, hun." "Just water, please," Linda said. "And I think we are ready to order." She placed the order. The waitress glanced at the coupon, nodded without comment, and tucked it into her apron. No raised eyebrow. No pause. Linda exhaled slowly. While they waited, Mia drew invisible pictures on the tabletop with her finger, narrating each one in a quiet, serious voice. A horse. A rainbow. Their cat, Mr. Buttons, who was currently staying with Linda's neighbor because the new apartment they were saving toward didn't allow pets yet. "When can we get Mr. Buttons back?" Mia asked. "Soon," Linda said. "When we get our new place." "Will it have a yard?" "I'm going to try really hard for a yard." Mia nodded seriously, as though this were a business negotiation she respected. Then she went back to drawing her invisible pictures. The grilled cheese arrived on a single plate, golden and cut diagonally, exactly the way Linda had hoped. The waitress set down 2 small plates without being asked, as though it were the most ordinary thing in the world. Linda felt a warmth move through her chest that had nothing to do with the temperature of the food. "Here, baby," she said, sliding the larger triangle onto MIA's plate. "Eat." Mia picked it up with both hands and took a bite. Then another. Then she set it down and looked up. That's when it happened. Linda wasn't sure exactly when Mia stopped eating. It was gradual, the way a child's attention drifts when something more interesting enters their world. One moment Mia was chewing, the next she was still, her sandwich held loosely in both hands, her eyes fixed on something across the diner with the total, unblinking focus that only small children and hunting cats can manage. Linda followed her gaze. 2 tables over, slightly to the left, a man sat alone, or almost alone. A little boy, maybe 6, sat across from him, coloring in a small notebook with a red crayon. The man was somewhere in his mid-30s, broad-shouldered, with a kind of tired around his eyes that didn't come from one bad night but from a longer road. He wore a plain flannel shirt, work boots, a wedding ring that he touched occasionally without seeming to know he was doing it. In front of him sat a plate that seemed to belong to a different category of meal entirely. Tall golden pancakes, stacked 4 high, glossy with syrup. Crispy bacon lined up in a neat row. 2 eggs, sunny side up, the yolk still perfectly round and bright. A small bowl of fruit on the side. A glass of orange juice catching the morning light like something from a painting. Steam was still rising from the pancakes. Mia stared at that plate the way children stare at the ocean for the first time, not with wanting exactly, but with a kind of quiet wonder, like she wasn't sure the thing was entirely real. Linda watched her daughter's face and felt the specific tenderness and heartbreak of being a mother who cannot give her child everything. It is a feeling unlike any other, not dramatic, not sharp, just a steady, pressing weight that lives somewhere behind the ribs. She swallowed it down the way she always did. She reached across and gently touched Mia's hand. "Eat your sandwich, baby." Mia blinked, looked at her sandwich, took one small, dutiful bite. Then her eyes drifted back. Linda watched the man across the diner. He was cutting his son's pancakes without looking up, muscle memory from 1,000 mornings just like this one. But then his hand slowed, and he looked up, and his eyes, without any search, without any effort, found Mia. He saw her, not in the way that makes a person uncomfortable, not with pity or with the slightly theatrical sympathy people perform when they want to feel good about noticing something. He saw her the way one person sees another when they recognize something true, quiet, and still, and completely without judgment. His expression didn't change. He simply looked at the little girl with the purple pom-pom hat who was watching his pancakes like they were the most beautiful thing she had ever seen, and for just a moment, the busy morning sounds of the diner, the clink of mugs, the low talk, the bell above the door, seemed to soften around them. Linda felt it. The moment of being seen. And with it, the old familiar instinct rose up immediately, reliably, like it always did. Leave before it becomes something. Leave before anyone has to say anything. Leave clean, leave quiet, leave with whatever dignity you walked in with still intact. She reached for her jacket on the hook at the end of the booth. She tucked Mia's uneaten half sandwich carefully into a napkin and slipped it into her bag. Her movements were practiced and unhurried. She had learned that the key was to never look rushed, never look ashamed, just look like a woman who had somewhere else to be. She helped Mia down from the booth, settled her hat more firmly on her head. "Come on, sweetheart. Let's go." "But I didn't finish," Mia said. "We'll finish at home," Linda said. "It'll be a snack." She took Mia's hand, kept her eyes down, not in the searching way, not looking for anything, just the particular downward angle that means I am not here, I am already gone, please don't make this a moment. The way you hold yourself when you are trying to pass through a room without becoming part of anyone's story. She was 3 steps from the door. The cold air from outside was already slipping under the frame. She reached for the handle. And behind her, clear and unhurried over the soft noise of the diner, she heard the sound of a chair being pushed back from a table. "Hey, wait." The voice was quiet. Not loud enough to turn heads, not soft enough to ignore. Linda's hand was still on the door handle, cold metal under her fingers, the outside air pressing through the gap she had already opened. For one long second she didn't move. She told herself she hadn't heard it. She told herself it was meant for someone else. But Mia had already turned around. And when your 4-year-old turns around, you turn around too. The man was standing beside his table, one hand resting on the back of his chair, his little boy still seated and watching with the calm, open curiosity that children bring to everything they don't yet have a word for. The man wasn't blocking her path. He wasn't moving toward her. He was simply standing, the way someone stands when they want to offer something but understand that the offering has to be a choice. Linda let the door close. She turned to face him fully, chin level, shoulders straight. She had learned this too, that the way you stand in a difficult moment matters, not for other people, but for yourself. It is the small architecture of dignity. "My son ordered way too much," the man said. His voice was easy, unhurried. The voice of someone who had thought for half a second about exactly how to say what he was about to say. "We are not going to finish it. Feels wrong to let it go to waste." He wasn't holding the plate out toward her. He wasn't gesturing or explaining further. He simply said what he said and then waited, giving her the full weight of the decision, the way you give someone a door and step back so they can choose whether to walk through it. Linda looked at him. She was good at reading people. 8 months of navigating the world on the thinnest of margins had sharpened that particular instinct considerably. She looked for pity in his face and didn't find it. She looked for performance, the slightly elevated quality that comes into a person's expression when they are doing something they want to be witnessed doing, and didn't find that either. What she found was something simpler and rarer. A man who had seen something true and was responding to it the only way that made sense to him. She looked down at Mia. Mia was looking up at her with those wide brown eyes that contained, at this particular moment, the most enormous and careful hope Linda had ever seen in them. Not demanding. Not asking. Just hoping, the way children hope, completely, and without any armor against disappointment. Linda's throat tightened. She nodded once. "Thank you," she said. 2 words, quietly. He nodded back, the same economy of gesture. Then he turned to the empty table beside his own, the foretop that had been cleared and reset with a paper placemat and a small vase holding a single plastic daisy, and he set his plate down there. Not slid across to her. Not handed over. Set down, at a proper table, as if this was simply where the meal was always going to be eaten. Then he pulled out a chair. Not for Linda. For Mia. He pulled it out the way a maître d' pulls out a chair in a restaurant that has candles on the tables and a dress code at the door. With one hand, clean and simple, angled just slightly toward the small girl in the purple pom-pom had as if she were the most expected guest in the room. Mia looked at the chair. Looked at her mother. Linda nodded. And Mia walked over and climbed up into that chair with the gravity and composure of someone who had been waiting for exactly this table all along. Linda sat beside her daughter. She set her bag on the floor. She folded her hands in her lap and took one slow breath and let herself be still for a moment, which was something she had not allowed herself in longer than she could precisely remember. The man's little boy, she would learn his name was Caleb, 6 years old, missing his 2 front teeth, owner of strong opinions about the color red, slid off his own chair and came around to the empty seat across from Mia without any instruction from his father. He simply came, the way children gravitate toward other children, pulled by some instinct older than language. He sat down. He pushed the small ceramic pitcher of maple syrup across the table toward Mia with one deliberate hand. Mia received it with both hands, like a gift. Neither child said anything for a moment. Then Caleb picked up his red crayon from where he had carried it over in his fist and set it on the table between them. "You can use it," he said. "I have more." Mia picked it up and drew a small circle on the edge of the paper placemat. Caleb nodded approvingly. The negotiation was complete. Linda watched her daughter begin to eat, real eating, the kind with both hands and no hesitation, syrup on her chin almost immediately, and felt something move through her that she couldn't have named precisely but that lived somewhere in the neighborhood of relief and grief and gratitude all pressed together into a single quiet feeling. The man had gone back to his own seat. He wasn't watching them. He was doing the ordinary work of breakfast, refilling Caleb's water glass from the small pitcher, checking his phone briefly, cutting a piece of bacon and eating it without ceremony. Just a father on a Tuesday morning. Nothing more. But Linda noticed, because she noticed everything now, because careful attention had become both her shield and her compass, that his plate was still mostly full. The pancakes barely touched. The eggs untouched. He was eating slowly, with no hurry, giving them time. She didn't say anything about it. Some kindnesses are received best in silence. The waitress with the silver hair came by and refilled the water glasses without comment, as though 2 families sharing adjacent tables in a diner on a Tuesday was the most natural arrangement in the world. Maybe, Linda thought, in this particular diner, it was. Maybe Marcy's had held 1,000 mornings like this one and would hold 1,000 more. Maybe kindness had a geography, and she had stumbled into one of its corners without knowing. Mia finished the pancakes. She ate with the focused efficiency of a child who had learned, without anyone teaching her explicitly, not to leave things on her plate. Then she sat back and looked at Caleb with her serious, considering expression. "My cat is named Mr. Buttons," she announced. Caleb thought about this. "Is he a good cat?" "He's the best cat," Mia said. "He sleeps on my feet." "I want a dog," Caleb said. "My dad said maybe." They both looked at the man. He glanced up from his phone, caught both sets of eyes on him, and smiled the kind of smile that happens before you decide to smile, the real kind. "Maybe is still on the table," he said. Caleb turned back to Mia with the satisfied expression of someone whose case was still alive. Linda smiled. She couldn't help it. It arrived on her face the way warmth arrives in a room when someone opens a door to somewhere sunny. Not dramatic, not announced, just suddenly present. She looked at the man. He was looking at his coffee cup, but the corner of his mouth held something. She had the sense that he was a person who felt things fully and showed them quietly, which was a combination she recognized because she was built the same way. She wanted to say something. She rehearsed several things silently. "Thank you again. This means more than you know. I don't usually accept help, but I'm glad I did today." All of them true. All of them somehow too large for the moment and too small for what she actually meant. She said nothing. She let the moment be what it was. Outside the diner windows, the snow had thickened. It was coming down in the slow, deliberate way that suggested it had decided to stay. Not a passing flurry, but a real snow, the kind that softened the edges of everything and made the world look briefly like something a child had drawn. The streetlights were still on even though it was morning, glowing orange through the white. Mia pressed her palm flat against the cold window glass and watched a snowflake land and disappear. "Mama," she said quietly, not turning from the window. "Yes, baby. Can we come back here?" Linda looked around the diner. The silver-haired waitress moving between tables with her coffee pot and her comfortable ease. The bell above the door. The warm light. The two children sitting side by side, one with syrup on her chin and one with a red crayon tucked behind his ear. She looked at the man. At exactly that moment, without planning it, he looked up. They held the look for just a second. Nothing in it that needed a name. Just two people in the same warm room on a cold morning, each carrying something heavy, each briefly, quietly, less alone. "Yeah," Linda said softly, turning back to her daughter. "I think we'll come back." And somewhere between the snow and the syrup and the small red crayon passed across a table without hesitation, something that had been pulled very tight inside her chest, something she had been holding in place for 8 long months, finally, gently, began to loosen.